So my name is Heather Shipman, and I teach at Dubai Women's College. I teach animation, I teach some graphic design, drawing, all different kinds of art. And I came to Autodesk University last year, and I felt like it was mostly geared towards architecture. And when they asked if I wanted to speak, I was excited because I thought it would be fun to do something that's more geared towards animation. So one of the really basic, I like to do character animation. Some people really like to animate things like machines and cars and things like that. I'm more interested in doing the cartoony, fun character stuff. And so I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about walk cycles, which is a really basic thing that you need for just about any animation that you might do if it's a cartoon or if it's a video game or whatever you happen to be doing with a character. You'll probably need a walk cycle at some point. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Okay, so as I just said, we're going to talk about walk cycles and specifically using something called inverse kinematics to animate a walk cycle. Do any of you guys do animation? Have you used Maya at all? Or are you just learning about it? Just learning? Just learning about it? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so one thing is that every walk is unique. I'm just going to do a really basic one for you, but just to sort of point out that everybody has a different way of walking. And you've probably at some point been in a big crowd at some event, and you can see, you know, your child or your mom or your husband or something. You can't even see their face yet, but you can tell by how they're walking that it's them, right? So walks are very, very different for each person. And I put together a little short video of some walks that we can take a look at here. You might recognize some of these from different movies. Thanks. Actually, every one of these dwarfs has a different walk, slightly different walk.
So you see, it's like we figured the police car hired with a room full of.
Well, that means he won't be hassling me no more.
Nor anybody else. He had more dudes like you lined up for his future plans too, Jack.
Oh, no!
I better take my little before lunch nap before the new ranger gets here.
Okay, so you've probably recognized some of those films and some of those, the way that some of those characters walk. Just a few different things. Like I mentioned, on the 7 Dwarfs, one thing that was very difficult for the animator on that scene was that each one of the dwarfs has a different style of walking, but they all had to walk at the same speed. So you have to adjust the length of the stride and the timing and things like that so that they can all walk together even though they all walk differently. You have things like Marilyn Monroe, for example, where you can walk differently if you're wearing pants, and if you're wearing a really tight skirt, you have to kind of do one of these little things, right? So, so there's lots of different things that can affect how you walk. It can be your clothing or your height, or there was one of the guards that had a certain way of walking, a very formal way of walking that's obviously not natural, but that's how they have to do it to be formal. So different things can affect how you walk. So what is a walk cycle? Excuse me. A walk cycle basically means that you can have hand-drawn animation or you can have computer animation. But what it means is you have a sequence that you can play in a loop. And so you start out, for example, if your feet are apart, this is called a contact pose. And then you're like this, and then your foot's down again. If you do that twice, you'll end up in the same pose again, right? So if I do that in place, and I keep doing this, you can have the background move and just have your character stand in one spot. So if you play a video game, you'll notice that if, for example, if your character is walking or running, their feet just keep moving the same, and the controller makes them move around in the scene. Okay? So, and that way you can connect different sequences together also and have them play in a perfect loop if you need them to. And also, as it says here, you don't have to keep animating each step every single time the character takes a step. If it's a loop, they just keep stepping, and you move them around to where you want them to go. Okay, IK. A lot of people say, well, what's the difference between IK and FK? IK stands for inverse kinematics. FK stands for forward kinematics. Okay, so what's the difference there? IK works a little bit like this Kermit puppet here. So IK, if I move the character's wrist, the whole arm just kind of moves according to where I put the hand. Okay? FK, I have to actually rotate the shoulder more like a Barbie doll or something. I have to rotate here, and then the rest of the arm goes up with the shoulder. And it would be the same with the leg. If I am using IK, I would just pick up the foot and move the foot around, and then the leg would go wherever the foot happens to go. If I'm using FK, I would rotate it at the hip, and then the leg would go up when I rotate the hip. So I'd have to rotate the hip, and then the knee, and then the ankle. You'd have to rotate each thing separately. IK is a little bit more of a natural, it's more of a natural type of movement when you're animating. It's not natural according to your body, but it has a more natural feeling to it, at least to me, when I'm working with it for animation. Okay, now when you're talking about animation, a few different things. I don't have time to cover every single principle and tool that we might use, so I'll just cover a few that we'll be showing you today. One thing that's really important when you're doing a walk is that you need to use what's called the wave principle. And this is from a pretty standard, commonly used animation book called Cartoon Animation by Preston Blair. And you can see that when you take a step, your head goes up and down in a wave, okay? And depending on what kind of walk you have, or if you're running, the wave changes shape. And if your head doesn't go up and down, it's kind of like, right? It looks weird. It's like you could be on a skateboard or something because your head, or on the conveyor belt at the airport, right? Your head's just moving along. So if your head doesn't go up and down, then it mostly looks as if you're on some kind of machine. It doesn't look natural if your head isn't going up and down when you walk. So that's something really important to think about. Another thing that we use when we animate is something called a timing chart. And animation and film goes by frames per second. So for example, with film, the standard for film is 24 frames per second. So you guys have probably seen a piece of film, right? And it's like each little section with a picture in it, right? Those are called frames. And when you put them in the projector plays 24 frames per second, and that's how fast it has to play to give you the illusion that those still pictures are actually moving. And so, for example, I have here approximately 1 second of animation. It goes up to 25 because it didn't start at 0. Okay? And this is pretty much showing, this is a very even animation, but evenly spaced animation, but it's kind of showing what the body is doing over the course of that 1 second to take one step, okay? And this is actually one full cycle because you can see that this is 1 step because his right leg is back and now his left leg is back. So that's half of a walk cycle. And then when you continue on to the next step, once your left leg is back again, you've completed the cycle, all right? And you can adjust your timing chart so that your character maybe walks slow or walks quickly, or like the Willy Wonka clip I showed you, how he had a limp. You have to adjust it so that one leg is going faster than the other leg to make a character limp. So the timing chart can be really important, and it's also useful for other people to help you correct your animations. So they might say, well, on frame 10, you shouldn't have this happening. So it makes it really specific when you need to adjust something, which is really useful. And another thing that's really important for animation is that there are 12 basic principles of animation. There's more, but there's 12 basic ones that most animators try to stick to. And there were 2 very famous Disney animators named Frank and Ollie who came up with these 12 principles. This is an excellent book if you're interested in animation. It's another sort of standard book that everybody who animates usually has. And they came up with these 12 principles, and most people try to stick to them. And the most important one, or what's considered the most important one often, is what's called squash and stretch. I'll just play this little guy for you. So see how when he takes a step, he's kind of going like his body? That's called squash and stretch. So squash and stretch works for, I don't know, like if you see maybe a little bit heavy character and their tummy is bouncing a little bit, or it could even be exaggerated if you have, this guy's just a ball, right? But having that little bit of squash and stretch makes it feel a little, like it has a little more personality, right? Let's see. I'll just play that one more time so you can look at it again. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. There you go. And it's not a crazy amount of squash and stretch, but it just really gives that little ball a little bit of extra personality there. Okay. And another thing that you need to take into consideration, we're not going to have time to do a lot of this, but what's called overlapping and follow through. And one of the things that you'll see is like if you're walking and your arm is just going like this straight, it looks very robotic, right? So follow through is kind of like how things happen at different times. So if I start moving my arm this way, usually your hand actually kind of goes back. I'm really exaggerating it so you can see it, but so if I start moving my hand this way, my arm this way, my hand goes back, and when I get to the top, when I start to come down again, then my hand goes up. So you have this sort of, it's like a little, it's like a pendulum, but the last thing that moves is the tips of your fingers. So your arm moves and your hand kind of drags behind it. And this could happen with ears, like on a dog, or it could happen with a tail, like on a squirrel. So see, he's going down and the tail's going up. And then he's going up and the tail's going down. And then when he stops, the tail kind of goes like that. So that's also something that adds a little bit of personality and realism to animation, because if the squirrel was running and his tail was just sticking out straight like this the whole time, it would look pretty bad, right? It wouldn't be very nice animation. Okay, so like I said, there's 12 principles of animation. Those are just a couple, but for the purpose of a walk cycle, those are a good place to start. You guys can always check out the Illusion of Life, or you can even Google it. There's a little blurb about the 12 principles on Wikipedia, so you guys can check that out if you want to. Okay, so let's do a little bit of, how are we doing on time? We started a little bit late, but I don't want to, okay. Well, we should be able to at least get the basics of a walk cycle covered. You guys can see. This is Maya, so I'll be doing this in Maya for you guys. And this is a character called Norman. That's a free download that a lot of students use, and he's pretty basic, but you know, he works fine. And you can customize him if you want to, so he's a nice model to use. Okay, and here are the controls that Norman has been set up with. You don't need these controls to be able to move different things on the characters, but if you have, this is called, the skeleton is called a rig. The setup of the skeleton is called a rig. And if you have a nice rig, it has these controls for you because they're easier to grab and move around, because sometimes it's hard to select things if they're really small. So for example, I can grab this wrist here, and I can move his arm around. See? Hi. Okay. So, so we'll be using these controls. And he also has some extra controls built in using small scripts so that you don't have to select so much stuff all the time, and it makes things much easier to animate. I don't know why my cursor got so big. We should be able to do minus. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, so if you guys remember the timing chart that I showed you, right here I've got 1 second of animation. This is my time slider down here. And I have playback controls just like on any device. I can hit play and rewind and things like that. Okay. One thing that's nice about Maya that Maya didn't used to have is something called Auto Key. I'll show you that. A long time ago it didn't used to have it, but 3ds Max had it and Maya didn't, and now Maya has it too. And that's I originally learned to animate on 3ds Max, and I was used to Auto Key. So when I first started using Maya, I would get really frustrated because I would forget to set keys. I'll show you what that means. But anyway, okay, so I'll start out, for example, and you'll notice that the controls on the right side are red, and the controls on the left side are blue. And it can be really easy. It sounds like it would be obvious, but it's not. It can actually be really easy to mix up your feet and mix up your hands once you get animating, especially if you have a quadruped for a four-legged character. It gets really easy to mix up the legs. So usually the person who sets up the rig will do the left half of the body one color and the right half of the body the other color to help you keep it sorted out, okay? And in this case, and I don't know if they did it this way on purpose, but I always remember that blue has an L in it for left and red has an R in it for right. So that's a good way to remember that. So I'll start out with the right foot forward. I'm going to move his foot forward. Let me make this big for a minute. And I'll move his left foot back. That's a little bit too far. Okay. Now this is the contact pose where both feet are on the floor. Okay. And this looks a little strange, right? Because when you step forward on your heel, right? You don't step forward on your toe usually. So with these controls, we have these nice little controls that are built in with scripts to make things easier to animate. So I have heel roll, ball of foot roll, toe roll, ball twist, foot rock. So for example, I don't need to select this and get the rotate tool and rotate that control. I can click on heel roll and I can middle mouse drag out here in the viewport and it will rotate the foot like that for me. So when you take a step forward, usually you land on your heel, I would say, not on your toe. Okay, so I adjusted that, but now look, his heel's not even touching the ground. So that's not going to work very well. So now what I need to do is select his hip controller. And if you watch the feet when I do that, and I move the hip controller down, see how his feet stick to the floor? So like his feet can't go through the floor the way he's set up, which is good because in real life your feet are not going to go through the floor, right? So I can lower him down a little bit so that his feet are touching the floor, which also bends his knees. And that looks a little bit more natural, right? He doesn't have that real stiff leg look anymore, okay? Now, what I was talking about with frames, each one of these here on the timeline, that's called a frame. And what you do as you're animating is you set keys. And what that means is that I'm saying like, okay, I moved the foot. And I set a key, which is sort of like a little container for information on the timeline saying that the foot should be in this position at this point in time. Sort of like making a folder with, when you put information in your folder. A keyframe is information, an information folder for animation that you put on the timeline, basically. So I just moved these 2 feet, right? And I also moved the hip controller, which is not this one. This one here. And I need to set a keyframe for those 3 things. Okay? So I want to make sure that I'm on the first spot on the timeline, the first frame. And if I hit S, it sets a key. And then these turn red, which shows me that I have set a key for that. Now the nice thing is right down here on the bottom, there's an auto keyframe toggle that I can turn on So now that I've set the initial keyframe for those 3 controllers, anytime I move them after that, it will automatically set a keyframe for me, and I don't have to remember to do it the next time. Because I don't know how many times before they came up with this, I would get the character in this really complicated pose doing something, and then I would forget to set a keyframe, and then I'd move the time slider, and he'd just go back to this. I'd be like, ah. So when you have the auto keyframe turned on, it's really nice because it does it for you. I would say the drawback to it is if you're not used to it, anytime you move anything, it sets a keyframe for you. So you might be setting keyframes all over the place that you don't mean to if you're not used to using that particular tool. So it's really sort of a personal preference which one you like. Okay, so now I want to make sure that whatever position I put him in for the first keyframe, I want him in the same position on the last keyframe. And he's got all of these controllers, and to sit here and try to select every single controller on him and click, 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 and make sure I get it just right, every time I want to set a keyframe for everything, it could be a little bit of a pain in the bum. So what I can do is I can make custom buttons to select things for me. So I'm going to go up here to, this is called a shelf, where it has different tools on it. And actually, I already made this button. I'll make another one. I can make a custom button that will select everything. And the way I do that, my method I like to do that, is under Show, I can tell it to show nothing. And then I can show NURBS curves, which are what all of these controllers are created from. So I'm not seeing the guy. I unselect everything. Then I come down here to, am I not seeing it? Where's my script editor? Where did it go? All right, let's find my script editor here. Where do we go? Aha, there we go. All right. I was missing a line. Okay, here's my script editor right here. And what I can do is say, edit, clear all, clears all this out. And now the next thing I do, it'll write a script for it saying that I did it. So I'm going to select all of these controllers, plus a couple extras. And then I can take all of this thing where it says I selected all this stuff, and I can drag it up to my shelf, let go of it. I'll make it a Mel script. And now I have a button that if I click on it, it selects everything for me. So the nice thing about Maya is that it's really customizable. You can make these different selection sets. You can make a button that does anything you want it to do. And that way, if there's something that you find that you're doing often and it's taking up a lot of your time, you can make a button for it, and then you don't have to keep doing it over and over and over again. So that's a pretty nice thing to have at your disposal. Okay, so I'm going to show my guy again here. So on the first frame, what I'll do is I'll select everything, and I'll press S to set a keyframe for everything, so that now anytime I move anything, it'll use the auto key to set a frame for me. I don't have to worry about it. I can also come over here, right click and say copy, and go to the last frame and say paste. And it set a keyframe on the last frame. So now I know that the first frame and the last frame are the same, so it's going to match up when I'm done. Okay? Now in the middle, I'm just going to, for now, I'm just going to divide this up pretty evenly just for the sake of being convenient today. I'll go to frame 12. Now, on frame 12, I need the opposite, right? Because you take one step, and then you switch feet, and then to complete the cycle, you go back to the same feet again, all right? So I'm going to come over here. And what I might want to do is, oh, I feel like my display got really big. Okay, so remember I did the heel roll, all right? So that was -1.2. so here I'm going to move this one forward. I'm going to move this one back. We'll set this back to 0 again. And this one, I'll type in minus 1.2, minus 1.2. Okay, then I should have something that's pretty close to what I had before. So if I play this now, he's walking really, really fast, but I can actually, let's see. I can tell this to play, let's see, first let's do real time. Not every frame. That should look a little bit nicer. Oops. There we go. Okay, but you can see it's still not perfect. It looks like he's spending a lot of time on his heels. He looks a little bit more like he's ice skating, right? Plus, remember the thing I said about the wave principle, he's not going up and down, right? So that looks a little bit bizarre. Okay. So we do need to do some things like have him go up and down. Another thing is also we have to have his arms move, and his arms should be moving opposite of his legs, right? So when you take a step, your arms move opposite of your legs. If your arms are moving the same as your legs, you look like a monkey because you're going like this. That doesn't work, right? So you need to make sure that it's going opposite. And that's why I was saying also, it can get really confusing when you're animating something like a cat and you have to remember what 4 different legs are doing. Sometimes it's easy to get confused. So I'm going to take his arm. Let's see, I guess we'll go in the move. We can move both of his arms down. In general, for really realistic animation, you don't want, let's say, for example, you don't want both arms doing exactly the same thing, because in real life, your body can't do exactly the same thing at the same time, right? But again, for purposes of a faster animation, I'll do them the same. Also, I mean, sometimes it's easy to start with them the same, and then you offset them a little bit so that they're a little bit different. When things when poses and animations and things are too even, that's when they start to look a little unnatural. Okay, so I lowered his arms. I need to, I've got the wrong guy here. All right. What am I looking at? Oh, I grabbed the wrong thing. There we go. It's down here. Okay, so I'm going to move his arms closer to his body. Okay, that's still not working quite right. They're stretched out a little too far. I want to bend his elbows. Got to bend his elbows a little bit. All right, and move his arms in closer to his body. We also have these things called pole vectors, because you can see, like, I'm trying to move his arm, but his elbows are kind of sticking out, funny angles a little bit thing. I can use these things which are called pole vectors, and what that does is it rotates the elbows and the knees into a better position. So those are nice for refining your, They're nice for refining your animation to make that more realistic looking. Once I get the hands down to this position, I do need to use the rotate tool rather than the move tool in order to get that looking a little bit more like it should. Okay, now, all right, so if they need to be opposite each other, that means that this arm needs to go to the back, right? And the other arm needs to go to the front. Now, if he's like this, that still doesn't look quite right, but it's going to be better. And, you know, everybody walks differently. Like I said, some people flap their hands more, some people bounce more. So it really depends on, you know, if you're trying to make it look like a specific person, or if you're just trying to be cartoony, or that's the general kind of feeling that you want. Okay? I will say we'll take this guy and we'll just, I don't know, put that back here. It's not, and also you see that right now his hands are out really stiff like that. So, you know, when your fingers are relaxed, they need to be curled. So we'll do that too. Okay, that's close enough for now. Okay. So here's our guy. And so you can see he's got a key set. I was on the last frame when I set that key, but it's not there on the first frame, right? So see how it's going and it's going up, because it's not the same on the first and the last anymore. So it's no problem. I'll just, yeah. We'll select my all button. Select this all button, or not. Gonna give me a problem now? My buttons stopped, both of my buttons stopped working for some reason. That's okay. All I moved was those two, right? Copy. Go back to my first frame. Paste. Now those are down. Okay. And frame 12. I'll do the same thing I did before. I'll move this arm. Ooh, I seem to be having some kind of errors happening here a little bit. Don't know why. Interesting. Well, you know, if something's going to go wrong, it has to go wrong when you're in the middle of giving a presentation, right? That's how it always goes. I'm a teacher, so if anything can possibly go wrong while you're doing something, it will go wrong while you're in the middle of showing somebody else. Especially, you guys have probably had that happen. You take your car into the mechanic and you say it's making a noise, and then it doesn't make the noise when you're at the mechanic, right? Okay. Move this one back, and we'll move this one forward. I know. Yeah, sometimes he just decides he's not going to behave, right? It's funny because he doesn't mind being controlled in one particular viewport, but he doesn't like it in the other viewport. He seems to not mind perspective, but he is not liking orthographic for some reason. Okay. That's all right, we'll work with it. Okay, let's see. Looks like I had him with his arms a little bit further out in the last one, so I'll move it back a little bit more. A little bit more. All right, close enough. No, that's a little weird looking. That rotated too far. All right, good enough. Okay. So now, if he's walking, it's probably a little bit better now. Okay. All right, so he's walking, right? But it still looks weird because he's not going up and down, right? Okay. How are we doing on time? We're good? Okay? Okay. We'll do the last couple of poses just to get him looking like he's actually walking and not just skating along. Okay. So right here, you have the contact pose, and you have the opposite contact pose right here. Now, somewhere in the middle, you need a passing pose. So that's when you're kind of doing the flamingo thing and your knee is up in the air and you're standing on one leg, right? Maybe not like way up, but you know. One leg has to pass the other leg. So he started out with his right leg forward. So if he is walking in place, around frame 6 somewhere, his right leg is going to be on the floor, and his left leg will be bent at the knee, right? So Oh, you're kidding me. Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. No, I don't need a solution to the problem. Okay, yay! Wow, that was just nice. Huh? Yeah. It's all right. I know. Well, and sometimes this laptop's a little bit older, and sometimes 2016 doesn't like it very much. So. Okay, let's see. Oh, let's see. Open scene. Is it going to give me a scene to open? No. Okay. Good show. Let's see. Maybe it put it in here. No, that's not it. Huh? Yeah, it might be in my. Because I didn't set it when I was going because. No. Nope, that's my student's project. Huh? Go back? Yeah, but that's 2014. Huh? Yeah, no. It said it saved it, but... No. Where did you save it? No. Well, I guess I learned my lesson on that one, huh? I got all distracted by my presentation and didn't create a project folder. Let's see. Well, check in here. No, that's something else. Well, let me check. Nope. No. Oh. Well, I can't even check in this one. No, that's just the folder. Oh, bummer. Oh, wait. I have an idea. Huh? No, it said it autosaved, but I can't. It didn't autosave it where I set it last night, so it did its own thing. Sorry, I can't hear you. So, yeah. Did I put it in here? I have Norman in many places. That's the only problem. If I just put Norman, it's going to find a lot of stuff. There we go. Let's just go Norman. Thinking. Sorry, guys. Like I said, I just learned my lesson. Don't get distracted by what you're doing. Make sure you save. Make sure you save, kids. Okay, let's see. Wow, I have a lot of songs that have the word Norman in them, apparently. No, sorry, that's an old file. Yep, I'm afraid we are out of luck with that. I'll try one more time. File, open, desktop, should be in here. No. Oh, wait, is this it? Maybe this is it. Thinking, maybe? Nope, he has no animation. Okay, well, I don't think we're going to have time to do them again. And that is actually a bad version of this file. Or not, I shouldn't say bad, it's a not set up version of this file. Let's try this one. Well, let's see. We could do one step. How about that? I'll do the express version. All right. Forward, S. Backwards. Backwards, S. Arm down. Arm down. Arm forward. Arm back. Arm back. Arm back. Arm in. Arm down. Yes. Arm down. Arm in. Arm forward. Yes. Rotate. 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 Okay. All right, that's okay. This one, heel roll. What is it? Negative 1.2, negative 1.2. Up. Okay. Hips. Down. S. Okay, then we will select foot, foot, wrist, wrist, hips, S. And let's see, we'll put it, paste it here. Okay, we'll go to 12, we'll do the opposite. Up. Opposite is this foot back. 0. This foot forward. Up. Negative 1.2. This one forward. Rotate. No. No. This one back. Rotate, down, close enough. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, so one step, and then this one will be up. This one will be up. Rotate the foot down. Okay. So now, if I look at this, you guys can at least see. You guys can at least see that he's like this. He goes up. I mean, it's really rough at this point, but see how he's going up and then down? And then on the next one, we would take his feet. Take his feet, his hips, his wrist, we do copy, we paste, take his wrist, copy, I think that's my alarm. One more, I missed the wrist, I think. Copy. This guy, right? Copy, paste, paste. Okay. So he's going to go up, and then he's going to come back down again onto that foot, which I didn't do yet. Up, down. I missed a step. Anyway, okay. Sorry, that first one just really messed me up. Down is what I want. 1.2. Negative 1.2. Negative 1.2. That way. So down, up, down. And then you need to do other things like make the head bob and move the shoulders and move the hips and things like that. That's kind of the basic thing. Sorry about my little program crash there. I know that wasn't very interesting for you guys to watch. But you get the idea, huh?
They have to see both sides by the
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to, if anything can go wrong at the worst possible time, it will go wrong at the worst possible time. So, yeah, and when you're teaching animation, that happens a lot. So anyway, I need to let Alex get going here, but thank you, and you know, hopefully some of you guys who haven't really tried Maya before, you're interested in animation, you know, it's really fun. It's really, really fun. And in spite of crazy computer glitches and things like that, you can really have a really good time with it and do a lot. You can do a lot with Maya and you can do a lot with 3ds Max. Both of the programs people ask me all the time which one's better. They're both awesome. I like both of them for different reasons, and I wouldn't really say one is better than the other. So, yeah. So anyway, thank you very much. And